These are the stories topping the news. The Freedom Court case is adjourned until 2015. Guyana is perceived to be the most corrupt country in CARICOM, and the U.S. grand jury decides not to indict a New York policeman. Good afternoon. Welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Today is Thursday, 4th December 2014. I'm Ebony Brandon. Now for a look at the news developments in detail. The court has adjourned the case brought against Freedom FM until March 2015. According to Sylvester Anthony, attorney for the defendants, the plaintiffs, led by Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, have filed 2 defamation suits. The first names Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, Freedom FM, and Charles Zhang, and the second names the Honorable Nigel Carty, Freedom FM, and Charles Zhang. Anthony said the plaintiffs did not file documents to serve all of the defendants, so today's proceedings could not go forward.
Mr. Harris's lawyer indicated to the court that they were yet to serve the third defendant in this matter, who is Charlie Young of Disseminated. So because he has not been served in either of the matters, really the case management was premature. So that the matter has now been adjourned to March the 3rd to allow the service of the lawsuit on the third defendant, Charlie Young.
Mr. Anthony said he's confident they will win the case. We'll tell you why in our evening newscast at 7 p.m. The nation's leader and finance minister has given a sneak peek of the 2015 budget presentation, revealing that there will be no new taxes next year.
And because the people allowed the government's policies to work and the public servants ensured that we kept within those boundaries, there will be no need, of course, for any new tax in the government's 2015 budget.
The Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas made the disclosure during Wednesday's press conference at government headquarters. He also extended thanks to civil servants and other nationals who have cooperated with his administration as it implemented fiscal adjustments for the country.
The people of St. Kitts and Nevis over the years have given the government the space it needed for its policies to work. The Ministry of Finance officials have worked diligently to ensure that we maintain within our own economic framework the plans as we wanted them during the adjustment of the economy. Those policies have worked. We thank the people for their faith and for their support. We thank also, of course, the public servants for adhering to the government's plan.
While modest successes were reported, a very gloomy picture was painted of the fiscal situation in Nevis when Premier, the Honorable Vance Amory, addressed residents on the quarterly performance of the island on Wednesday. Throughout the report, the Premier seemed to suggest that the island's problems remain the fault of the former Nevis Reformation Party government, which left office in January 2013.
It is no secret that we have had to operate under difficult financial conditions over the past few months. Increasing fiscal deficits and high levels of indebtedness were some of the challenges that my administration inherited and have had to overcome. In spite of the challenges, we continue to look ahead to a period of growth, prosperity, and increase in the well-being of our people. We are confident that our economy is on the right path and that the policies we implement today will bring the desired reward in the short and medium term.
With salaries due soon and it being public knowledge that the federal government has had to rescue Nevis's civil servants several times this year as the NIA was unable to meet its basic salary obligations to civil servants, Mr. Amory declared that without Sugar Industry Diversification Foundation grant monies, the rumored double or triple salary bonuses would be impossible for his government to meet.
Even though up to this point we have managed to maintain a fiscal balance in the manner in which we have run the administration, to be called upon to pay a double salary and or, as the threat has been sent out, a triple salary in December would create additional burden on the administration. And this burden we would not be able to meet that from our resources, and we would therefore like to believe that the SIDF resources would be utilized and we would receive some grants from the SIDF to ensure that were a double salary declared or a triple salary, as it has been noised at the meeting by the Prime Minister, that we will be able to make that payment to our citizens.
We'll have more on this story for you this evening in our major newscast. In regional developments, Guyana is seen as the most corrupt English-speaking country in the Caribbean community, according to the Corruption Perception Index of 2014, published on Wednesday by watchdog organization Transparency International. We hear more in this report.
Guyana is once again pegged as one of the most corrupt countries in the world by Transparency International. Guyana, according to the annual Corruption Perception Index, is ranked 124 with a score of 30. 175 countries were assessed. Reports of Transparency International, an international civil organization leading the fight against corruption, are seen as a guide worldwide to measure corruption in the public sector. The organization in its release said bribes and backdoor deals don't just steal resources from the most vulnerable, they undermine justice and economic development and destroy public trust in government and leaders. Countries at the bottom of the ranks need to adopt radical anti-corruption measures in favor of its people. Among the measures that must be implemented are urgent appointment of members of the Integrity and Public Procurement Commissions and the creation of a modern anti-corruption legislation to investigate and prosecute the corrupt. The report has also called for an end to attacks, character assassination and vilification of persons who have identified corruption. For the last 6 years, Guyana has consistently been ranked among the most corrupt countries by Transparency International. Reporting for Capital News.
50 doctors and nurses from 13 Caribbean countries received training in the clinical management of Ebola during a workshop held in Antigua, Barbuda this week. The 3-day exercise, which was sponsored by the Pan American Health Organization, World Health Organization, WHO, and PAHO, is one of a series of actions the entities will undertake to help countries prepare for potential imported cases of Ebola. Clinical nurse specialist Sharon Vandenale said her role was to ensure that nurses and other caretakers understand what they're doing and why they're doing it in the event the time should ever come to treat Ebola patients. It was also said that although many healthcare professionals have contracted the virus, in most instances this occurred outside the Ebola care room. In international developments, a grand jury in New York City has cleared a white police officer in the videotaped chokehold death of an unarmed black man who had been stopped on suspicion of selling loose, untaxed cigarettes. The killing of Eric Garner has sparked accusations of racist policing. Al Jazeera's Shahib Ratansi reports from Washington, D.C.
These are Eric Garner's final minutes. He was suspected of selling single cigarettes on the street, a crime in New York. Police officers wrestled him to the ground, though the police report claimed no chokehold was used and that Garner was never in distress. The video shows otherwise. He repeats that cry, "I can't breathe," several times, and then the asthmatic Garner falls still. The coroner ruled Garner's killing a homicide by chokehold and chest compression. Chokeholds have been prohibited by the New York Police Department since 1993, but are not illegal. Garner's killing happened just weeks before the police shooting in Ferguson, Missouri, of Michael Brown, an unarmed African-American teenager. A grand jury declined to indict that police officer as well. In both cases, the prosecutor did not follow traditional practice. Instead of putting forward a pointed case, both prosecutors flooded the jury with evidence and allowed the police officers in question to testify without cross-examination. Almost immediately, protesters took to the streets in New York with nationwide protests planned. The mayor of New York accepted that this was not the outcome many had wanted.
One chapter has closed with the decision of this grand jury. There are more chapters ahead. The police department will initiate now its own investigation.
Also speaking shortly after the judgment, President Obama repeated that his administration understands that there are problems with the relationship between law enforcement and local communities.
I'm not interested in talk, I'm interested in action, and I am absolutely committed as President of the United States to making sure that we have a country in which everybody believes in the core principle that we are equal under the law.
President Obama announced a task force to look into policing, although one of those he appointed is himself accused of brutality during his tenure as police chief of Washington, D.C.